The foreseen arcade. Active.
Kept you waiting, didn't I? For today's video, we'll be looking at sets that were released as part of a 5th DevJam on RetroAchievements, with the topic being the NEC PC-8001 and PC-8801. These home PC systems were sold primarily in Japan, starting in 1979, with some limited availability in other parts of the world. The PC-8801 will go on to become a very popular PC gaming system in Japan until the early 1990s. The systems supported both disc and tape-based games, and for this DevJam, we saw a total of 42 achievement sets. So, let's get started on this video, shall we? Well, talk about a rather interesting way to start things off. This unofficial conversion of Namco's New Rally X is an example of a type-in game, which were often printed in computing magazines and books. In this case, the listing for New Rally X was originally printed in a May 1982 issue of IO magazine, the same magazine that gave us the other type-in game that has a set on RetroAchievements, Marine Alien. Type-in games were something of a common sight on computers like the ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64 or even the VIC-20. Heck, the Amstrad CPC had a fair share of those that will make for fun sets on RetroAchievements in the future. But the type-in games for the PC-8000 and the PC-88 are a lot harder to come across than I actually imagined. This set has 6 achievements worth 35 points, and beating it requires you to complete the 5th route. Other challenges include collecting all flags in a challenging stage within round 3, completing any non-challenging round with the double points active on all collected flags, completing round 1 without using a smoke screen, and completing the first 2 rounds without losing a life. Sokoban. What other Japanese system would exist without it? The block-pushing puzzler needs no introduction, though since this is played on the PC-88, the controls are a little bit iffy, since they have either dropped or doubled inputs. That can make it easy to make a mistake even if you didn't mean to do it. So yeah, the controls are too slippery in this version. There are 6 achievements worth 80 points, and all you need to do is to complete 20 levels. The other 2 achievements ask you to complete levels 1 through 10 and 11 through 20 without retrying. Though good luck trying to accomplish that with controls being this unresponsive. Now, a lot of the games as part of a PC-88 DevJam were usually distributed via floppy disks, much like with the Apple II. Horror House, released in August of 1983 by Nihon Falcom, is a bit of an odd duck, as this is the only game as part of a DevJam to be released via cassette tape. That means the load times take about 8 to 9 minutes, which frankly feels like you're waiting for an eternity. This text-based adventure has 6 achievements worth 25 points. To beat this set, you need to obtain the needed items, find the secret room, and restrain the mystery killer. The only other achievements for the mastery ask you to find and restrain the culprit without ever running into any ghosts. Dig Dug has seen plenty of ports back in its prime, with NES and Atari ports being the most well known. But it's easy to overlook the fact that Dig Dug was also ported to home computers. The PC-8801 version, released in December of 1983, was developed by Denpa Shimbusha and published by Micomsoft. It does look the part, but apparently this port doesn't work properly in Quasi-88 or its core on RetroArch and RA-libretro, as it's not supposed to be randomly fast and or inconsistent in a rather unplayable manner. You know, I'd rather wait until we get either a set for the Apple II version or RetroAchievement support for the VIC-20 and Commodore 64 and get sets for their ports. Heck, even Atari 8-bit computers would be a better choice. Anyway, this port has 10 achievements worth 74 points, and you need to clear round 8 to beat this one. You also have achievements for earning 20,000 points, clearing 1 through 5 rounds without losing a life, and clearing the first 2 rounds with 1400 points and without dying. Developed by Technosoft, Thunder Force is a free-scrolling top-down shooter and the first title in what will become the best-known shoot-'em-up franchise. Controlling a lone fighter ship, you destroy enemies, weapons, and bases of the evil alien Orn Empire. The ship can shoot both air and land targets, and there are many targets of both types to destroy. The goal of each stage is to destroy all the shield bases, enter the area base, and destroy the core. After shooting the core, you move on to the next stage to destroy more bases. Thunder Force originally debuted in 1983 for the Sharp X1, and the PC-88 version we have here came out in January of 1984. The set for the PC-88 version has 20 achievements worth 156 points, and to beat this one, you need to clear all 10 scenes. Other tasks include clearing said scenes with a number of remaining lives, earning a score of 20,000 points for an extra life, scoring 1,000,000 points, and destroying 50 enemies in a single scene without losing a life. Developed by Pony Canyon, Fruit Panic has you controlling Walkie, a yellow ball with legs who must pick up all fruits thrown around the platforms while halted by the Nyankees. Walkie can't jump between platforms, so the only way to reach other platforms and more fruit is to walk off the platform and go to one of the trampolines placed on the left and right of the screen. To deal with the Nyankees, you can drop on top of them from above or lay bombs, though you can only lay one at a time. Once you pick all the fruit, the game proceeds to the next level with new platforms and another type of fruit. Curiously, Fruit Panic later got a remake for the Game Boy in 1990 as a tie-in to the Japanese film Tasmania Story, despite the fact that the game has nothing to do with the film whatsoever. There are 11 achievements for the PC-88 version, with the set being worth 90 points. While the beat condition asks you to clear all 8 stages, the other achievements for mastery ask you to earn 20,000 points, as well as collecting every star in both bonus stages. Released in March of 1984, Kidou Senshi Gundam Part 1, Gundam Daichi ni Tatsu, is another text adventure as part of the PC-88 DevJam. Unlike Core House, this one was released via floppy disk, yet apparently it still seems to have a problem with load times. This one does have pretty good still graphics for a game released in 1983, at least on the PC-88, but as a text adventure game, I've read that this one is not very good. And for an official English release, the English text left a lot to be desired. And if this is your first introduction to anything Gundam related, nothing will make any sense for you whatsoever. This is definitely the least valuable set out of all PC-88 titles, even as part of a RetroAchievements DevJam, as it has 6 achievements worth 6 points. Even Telenet Music Box is worth a lot more points for mastery, and that isn't even a game at all. From what I can tell, it's also pretty straightforward, as you just need to beat the game for the mastery, which will probably take about 38 minutes. A lot of you would already know that Nintendo mainly focuses on consoles and handhelds, but you'd be surprised to learn that they once collaborated with Hudson Soft to bring some of their titles to Japanese computers, with the latter being given the development duties. Mario Bros. Special is the first to talk about as part of this video. Interestingly, Mario Bros. Special had 2 separate versions, one for the PC-8001 and the other for the PC-8801, the latter of which is the one that got a set as part of a PC-88 DevJam. Mario Bros. Special is a lot different from the original arcade game it was based on. The first screen sees Mario attempting to reach the top of a screen through moving gaps to activate all 5 switches to open the exit gate. Second screen features trampolines, which Mario can use to stun enemies. The third screen requires you to collect money while running on conveyor belts. And finally, we have a bonus screen just like in the original, where you need to collect all the money before the time limit, though the latter 2 screens will spawn rings you need to collect to move on. And unlike the original arcade game, you cannot stun enemies from beneath, so you'll have to rely on unstable platforms for that. The set for the PC-8801 version has 16 achievements worth 192 points, and the beat condition asks you to clear phase 52 to complete the 13th wave. Other achievements include clearing waves without losing a life, as well as getting a perfect bonus on every 4th phase. Our next game on the PC-88 DevJam is Choro Q Holiday Puzzle, released in June of 1984 by Takara and Kogado Studio. While I don't know what holiday was it meant to celebrate, this is a simple sliding puzzle game based on Takara's popular line of miniature toy cars. It features only one picture to unscramble, but offers 4 different difficulty settings which change the size of the pieces, as well as one crucial difference with most other puzzles of this type. Each of the 3 light colors in the puzzle is scrambled and must be solved separately, and you can freely switch between moving the red, green, and blue pieces around the board. This one has 9 achievements worth 87 points, and the goal for the beat condition is to solve the puzzle on each difficulty. You also have achievements for solving the puzzle on each difficulty within a time limit, and solving the puzzle on junior difficulty or higher by only switching colors twice. Developed by Dan Gorlin and published by Brotherboon Software, Choplifter is a side-scrolling action arcade game where you control an attack helicopter, and your task is to go behind enemy lines and rescue up to 64 hostages. Since the chopper can only carry 16 passengers at a time, you'll need to perform multiple rescue attempts to rescue everyone, while also dealing with tanks and enemy aircraft that will try to stop you. While Choplifter originally debuted on the Apple II in 1982, System Soft ported the game to the PC-88 in November of 1984, with the PC-8001 port coming out 2 months later. The set for the PC-88 version has 10 achievements and 303 points, and while the beat condition does ask you to save all 64 hostages, which is a lot easier said than done, you also have achievements for saving all 64 hostages in the first sortie and in less than 5 minutes respectively, each worth 100 points, saving 16 hostages in a single trip, destroying all 4 building entrances without firing a single rocket, and destroying 10 tanks with a single sortie. The second Nintendo game on the PC-88 DevJam video next is Nintendo No Golf, released in April of 1985. This one was released a year after its Famicom and arcade versions, and all the basic principles of golf remain in place. This one has 22 achievements worth 110 points, though apparently the game has some very dodgy data, so the achievement developer had to use some very dodgy logic to fight it. As a result, all achievements will lock when the course select screen is accessed, and you will have to reset the game in order to reactivate them. Released on both PC-88 and PC-8000, Thexder, developed by Game Arts, is a platform shooter where you pilot a battle robot that's capable of switching from a mech into a jet at any time. Your weapon does have automatic aiming, but it uses up energy, so you will have to wait for it to recharge once you run out. The set for Thexder on RetroAchievements was developed specifically for the PC-88 version, and it contains 34 achievements worth 325 points. Besides clearing all 16 levels for the beat condition, you also have achievements that ask you to increase the maximum energy to 500, fighting and destroying high-valued enemies on each level, destroying 20 enemies with your shield on any level, and clearing any level after the first one without using the shield and without dropping below 100 energy on any post level 8 stage. Developed by Telenet Japan, best known for the Valis and Cosmic Fantasy series, American Truck has you driving a long truck where you have to reach the finish line on each stage before you run out of time or fuel. You can also collect gasoline items to keep the fuel tank filled, but watch out for bombs that will randomly appear on the road. Furthermore, you also have to avoid going off the road or crashing into walls, as well as the other cars and trucks in traffic. The PC-88 version of American Truck has 12 achievements worth 73 points, and beating this one requires you to not only clear all 5 trips, but also finishing the game with a score higher than 50,000 points. Besides picking up items that increase your score, repair your truck, or give you an extra life, you also have achievements for passing an entire trip without letting up on a gas, destroying 30 cars for points in a single life, and topping the leaderboard by finishing with a score higher than 200,000 points. A lot of you might be more familiar with the better known NES counterpart, which was known in the West as Lunar Ball in 1987. Since the NES was the only version to get a worldwide release, it's easy to overlook the fact that Lunar Ball, developed by Compile, was originally released on both MSX and PC-88 computers, with the latter version coming out in June 1985, 6 months before its Famicom release. As the name implies, it's a pool simulation that features a futuristic theme, complete with space-age balls and tables. In stark contrast to normal pool, each of the different tables are designed in several different shapes and sizes, in a fashion similar to miniature golf. The set for the PC-88 version contains 24 achievements worth 167 points, which is significantly less than the NES counterpart, which has 73 achievements worth 453 points. Beating this one requires you to complete stage 20, while the remaining achievements for mastery ask you to earn 10,000 points to gain an extra life, earning 5,000 points, completing a stage by sinking a ball on each turn, and completing stages 1 through 5 without losing any life. And from the looks of it, only 3 people managed to complete the set on softcore, while absolutely no one managed to master it. The third game in the Nintendo Hudson Soft collaboration to get a set as part of a PC-88 DevJam is Nintendo No Tennis. Released for the PC-88 a year after the original Famicom version, it's exactly what it says in the name, Nintendo's take on tennis, which is played in a more or less standard suit of rules. From the looks of it, it plays somewhat slower than on the NES, while also sporting a color palette that's quite an eyesore if you stare at it for too long. But otherwise, it's still pretty close to how the original played. The set for the PC-88 version has 10 achievements worth 170 points, and the main goal for the beaten status is to beat the game on any difficulty level. Mastery will require winning any set after reaching a tiebreaker round, as well as winning a perfect game on level 5 difficulty, meaning you have not to let the opponent win any set whatsoever. And it looks like a couple of users only managed to beat the game on level 1 difficulty, as nobody even bothered to master it. But with a color palette like that, can you blame them? Developed by ASCII Corporation, The Castle is a puzzle platformer where you control a prince that has to save the princess. In order to find the princess, you will need to explore the castle, which contains many different rooms. Each room is a puzzle in itself, where you need to use your brain to avoid enemy knights, fat Tyrolean men, and hazards, as well as using objects to reach the next door, provided you have the right key for it. The PC-88 version has 15 achievements worth 207 points, and beating this one requires you to rescue the princess after rescuing the fairies in both red and blue maps. However, all the soft blocks and the increasing puzzle complexity are the least of your worries for this version. You see, to combat piracy, ASCII Corporation implemented a method of copyright protection for the PC-88 release. When you collect one of the fairies, or the princess, the game will make a save file that removes certain key items to prevent you from beating the game. Deleting the save file should fix this, but you can't do that while the emulator is open. You can save the game by pressing the F4 key, but how to load the save is another problem entirely. Let's hope someone does have a clue on how to load saves for this one, or how to circumvent the copy protection if anyone even wants to master it. If you have seen the SG-1000 DevJam video, you will likely remember that one of the featured games was a port of Tenkan's arcade game Bombjack, which arrived on Sega's first home console a year after the original arcade debut. While I was making that video, I forgot to mention that Bombjack was one of the several SG-1000 games to be released via the Sega MyCard format instead of a cartridge. But the focus here is on the PC-88, and that's the version we have here for this DevJam lineup. The PC-88 version, published by SoftBank Corporation, was released the same year as the SG-1000 counterpart, and while Sega handled the porting duties for the latter system, The PC-88 version was done by Welcome Cat, which is the only game that were credited on mobile games as far as I know. The PC-88 version has 11 achievements worth 66 points, which is a stark contrast to the SG-1000 port, as that version has 24 achievements worth 220 points. At least the set for this port is a lot more straightforward, as besides finishing the first wave by beating level 5, you also have achievements for clearing level 10 to complete the second wave, clearing the first 5 rounds without losing a life, collecting 20 flame bombs on any stage with 1 life, gaining an extra life, and reaching the triple multiplier. But watch out though, the PC-88 port is actually a lot harder than the SG-1000 conversion, as the speed is so inconsistent it's not even funny, especially with the frequent spawn killing, as most of the time you're depending on the P item to get through the levels. So unless you really want to put through all the trouble, you're better off mastering the SG-1000 port instead. Developed by Nihon Falcom, Xanadu Dragon Slayer 2 bears many similarities to the first Dragon Slayer, being a dungeon-crawling role-playing game with action combat where you bump into enemies to attack them, and primarily revolving around exploration of vast underground mazes. But unlike the previous game, exploration in Xanadu is conducted from a side-scrolling perspective, meaning there are no platforming elements in the game, and action-based gameplay is confined to combat only. Xanadu is a really hard game if you don't know what you're doing. Technically speaking, almost everything could be considered as missable, even progression and win condition achievements if you mess up your character, and the monster respawns are not infinite, meaning there's a limited amount of gold and experience you can get. It's such an unfair game in so many ways, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, the set for Xanadu has 61 achievements worth 114 points, and what's required for progression is to get crowns on levels 3, 5, 7, and 9, getting the Dragon Slayer on level 10, and defeating the King of Dragons. But let's be honest, beating this set, let alone mastering it, definitely feels like you would need to sign a waiver beforehand. Back to the ever-curious PC-88 ports of Nintendo games. The next one we get to look at is Excitebike, released in October 1985, which happens to be given a port for both PC-88 and the PC-8000. Like any NES original, you race against the clock or compete with other motocross riders across 5 tracks full of long straights, large jumps, and obstacles. It even retains the track editor from the original NES game as well. The set for Hudson Soft's PC-88 port has 22 achievements worth 120 points. And to beat this set, you just need to win every challenge course in first on both selections A and B. Besides the achievements for winning all the main courses in first, you also have 2 achievements on selection B, where you need to finish first on any challenge and main course without crashing or overheating. Released in the same month as the Excitebike port, we have one more Nintendo title to be brought to the PC-88 by Hudson Soft for this DevJam, in form of Ice Climber. The aim of Ice Climber is to climb to the top of many different mountains, while also dealing with many hazards along the way, from polar bears to condors to falling icicles and moving platforms. The PC-88 port has 49 achievements worth 620 points, making mastery of the set surprisingly more valuable than the original NES game. There are 8 achievements for progression, asking you to complete 4 mountains per achievement. While mastery does ask you to grab all vegetables and a condor on each mountain without losing a life or stunning an enemy, the Conquering the Peak achievement, worth 100 points, is the toughest one, as it asks you to climb all 32 mountains in a row. And did I mention this set is the most valuable of all PC-88 DevJam sets? It's worth more for mastery than Xanadu, believe it or not. Even though we're done with Nintendo for the PC-88 DevJam, we still have one other game from Hudson Soft within the lineup. A sequel to Dezeni Land, Dezeni World is a bizarre text adventure game where you're cast into the role of one Dezeni man, a rather unremarkably looking character who nevertheless must defeat the nefarious supercomputer HAL-3. On the way, you will encounter various eccentric people, including popular comic book characters such as Superman, a robot bearing a strong resemblance to C-3PO from Star Wars, among others. And the warning on the cover wasn't kidding when it said this game is for crazy people only, as I have absolutely no idea what's going on, even with the obvious language barrier. I guess you would get a lot of the jokes if you do speak Japanese, but since there is no English translation, the parody elements certainly aren't going to make a lick of sense most of the time. The set itself has 14 achievements worth 40 points, and besides the main progression stuff, you also have a missable achievement where it asks you to go for an unexpected swim. It's always nice to see the many versions of this fine arcade game. I already covered Mappy as part of the Arcade DevJam video, so there's no need for me to explain the basics at this point. Over at RetroAchievements, Mappy has sets not only for the original arcade version, but also for the MSX, Famicom, Game Gear, and in this case, the PC-88. The PC-88 port is another conversion done by Denpa Shibunsha, but unlike Dig Dug from earlier, this one does run at the correct speed. What's interesting is that there's also a separate version for the PC-8001, which came out a month after the PC-88 version. The PC-88 port has 17 achievements worth 140 points, and you just have to complete round 16 to beat this one. You also have achievements for completing even-numbered rounds without losing a life, earning 100,000 points, collecting all balloons in all odd-numbered bonus rounds, waiting long enough for the Goro coin to show up, and 2 tricky challenges that need to be done in round 1. Almost everyone in a retro gaming scene will know Super Pitfall for its NES version that was given a verbal trashing by James Rolfe as the angry video game nerd. Of course, it's easy to overlook the fact that the game was also released on the PC-88. But while Micronix was responsible for the NES version, with SRB Software handling the porting duties for the TRS-80 color computer released in 1988, the PC-88 version we have here was developed by Pony, who published the Famicom version in Japan. The set for the PC-88 version has 35 achievements worth 350 points. And besides the usual progression, you also have achievements for obtaining a score of over 500,000 points, collecting all items, potions, and hidden treasures in each area, beating the game in under an hour and defeating the final boss in less than 30 minutes. Developed by Microvision and published by Voltec in 1986, Topple Zip is a vertically scrolling shooter that is marketed as a racing game. The basic premise is that you control an aircraft and fly in competition against several other computer-controlled crafts. In addition to shooting at your opponents, you may ram into them, and they into you. Doing so may dislodge a pill-shaped power-up from them, which you can then shoot and collect. The set for the PC-88 version has 24 achievements worth 136 points, and in order to beat this one, you simply need to reach the princess scene and foster peace in the galaxy. Other achievements include activating and equipping power-ups, having all 3 types of missile at once, shooting or stunning every type of enemy ship in a single scene, and reaching the ending without using the radar, letting the zipping topple, or collecting any negative items. Arkanoid is one of those iconic games that don't even need an introduction, since it can be described as a souped-up take on Atari's classic Breakout. And being that it is a Japanese system, it's easy to say that the PC-88 version was developed by Taito themselves. The PC-88 port has 14 achievements worth 147 points, which is not quite valuable for mastery, especially when compared to the Amstrad CPC version by Imagine Software, which is worth 405 points for mastery. Besides beating the boss in round 33, you also have achievements for beating the game from start to finish without using a continue, reaching a score of over 500,000 points, clearing all of the bricks in any round, and exiting a round early by using the break power-up. Next up on the PC-88 DevJam video is Silpheed. As one of the first ever games that used music as a selling point, you pilot a spaceship through levels of increasing difficulty in a pseudo 3D vertically scrolling field, shooting everything in your path. New weapons will become available as you gather points, and power-ups are sprinkled throughout the levels. The set for this one has 30 achievements worth 205 points, and besides finishing all 20 levels, you have achievements for equipping new weapons, fighting Easter eggs, beating the mid-stage boss in stage 2 before it escapes, eliminating 15 enemies or more within one invincible power-up, and finishing the first stage with 1430 points or less. Back on the topic of PC-88 conversions made by the same company as the original arcade versions, next is 1942. While Capcom handled the development of both the arcade and PC-88 versions, the latter version was published by ASCII Corporation in 1987. At least what I've read on the chronological guide to RetroAchievements anyway. The PC-88 version has 16 achievements worth 180 points, the same value as the NES version. While it's not as valuable as the original arcade version, it is still worth more than the MSX and Game Boy Color releases. Besides clearing all 32 stages, you also have achievements for completing the game in a single session without collecting and or using the dodge or roll move, accumulating 10 lives, and scoring 1 million points. First released for the Sharp X1, MC1500, and FM7 in 1986, Knither is a sequel to Demon Crystal, which came out in 1984. The premise is the same as in the original, where you have to collect keys to open locked areas, find the big key, and then the exit. Only now you also have to collect 3 passwords per world, otherwise you cannot advance to the next world. In addition to the Fireball, there's also Thunder Sword, Wave of Fire, Cracker, and Spark Flash abilities, which kill all enemies on screen. The game features 5 worlds with 10 stages each, plus the last stage where you have to battle the witch for a total of 51 stages. The set for the PC-88 version has 26 achievements worth 175 points, and you just need to defeat the Stark Storm and save the world to beat this one. You also have achievements for fighting special items in each world, scoring 500,000 points, and completing all 10 stages in any world. Back in 1987, Japan was first introduced to the Megami Tensei series, Atlus's flagship series that would eventually lead to the famous Persona series. While the fans of the series will know about the debut game on a Famicom, you might be surprised to learn that there was a similarly named game for the Japanese computers. Despite sharing the same name, this version of Megami Tensei has little to do with the Famicom version gameplay-wise. Instead of a first-person RPG with turn-based combat with large maze-like dungeon areas like in the Famicom game, Megami Tensei on the PC-88, as well as the MSX, Sharp 1, and FM7, is an action game with RPG elements, in which you must fight your way through a series of mazes infested with demons, whom you must defeat in real-time combat, all while taking place in a top-down perspective. You find many items and become stronger as the game progresses, but the emphasis of the game is not on character development, but on action-oriented combat and exploration of the dungeons. The set for the PC-88 version has 39 achievements worth 232 points, with the beat condition requiring you to escape the place with Yumiko. The other achievements include beating the game while having visited every shrine, and beaten all the bosses in the game, finding specific items, etc. Makaimura, better known as Ghosts and Goblins, is another example of a game that has plenty of home conversions of varying quality. And like with 1942, it was yet another example of a home conversion being made by the same company as the original arcade game. And of course, it was another Capcom title to be published for the PC-88 by ASCII Corporation. And from what I have read on the comments for the said port, the PC-88 version is actually much easier than the NES port, which came out a year before, despite the fact that the jump inputs get eaten in a way it leads to many deaths to pits. Though in my case I couldn't figure out which inputs do what for picking up the items. The PC-88 port has 17 achievements worth 172 points, which is worth the least amount of points for mastery compared to the Famicom, NES, WonderSwan, or the Game Boy Color conversions, let alone the arcade original. Besides completing the second quest for the beaten condition, you also have achievements for clearing stage 2 or above while wearing the silver armor and wielding specific weapons, as well as reaching stage 6 in the first quest with no other weapons than the lance without dying twice. Are you familiar with the PC-88 version of Super Mario Bros. Special? You know how the switch from fluid scrolling to the flip screen made it more of a chore to play? Well, what if I told you that there was an arcade game whose transition to NEC's 8-bit computer was even rougher than that? And that's exactly what happened when Kure Software Global attempted to port Space Harrier to the PC-88. And just looking at the footage, you can already tell the system was not up to the task. This is not an emulation glitch, by the way. This is how the port looks like in motion. I suppose this is a result of sacrificing accurate graphics in order to have the port run at an acceptable frame rate, but even then, this makes the Mega Drive port of Space Harrier 2 look arcade perfect by comparison. If I wanted to play Space Harrier on a home computer, I would have gone with the Commodore 64 conversion by Elite Systems. No wonder Capcom and Taito chose to port their arcade games to the PC-88 themselves. So anyway, the PC-88 port has 23 achievements worth 302 points, and the main beat condition requires you to complete all stages, from Moot to Abysmal. But seriously, if I wanted to go to an eye exam, I would have gone to the eye exam. After going through an eyesore of a port, let's take a calm, relaxing detour with Solitaire Royale, which was an early commercial instance of Card Solitaire. First released by Spectrum Holobyte in 1987 for DOS and Macintosh, this was brought over to Japanese computers in 1988 by GameArt. The PC-88 version we have here featured 8 different games of Solitaire, from Klondike to Pyramid, the Tour mode where you play all 8 of them in a row, trying for the highest combined scores, and 3 children's games, Pairs, Concentration, and The Wish. The PC-88 version has 18 achievements worth 168 points, and beating this one requires you to win a round of each game of Solitaire in Challenge mode. Besides winning a round in the 3 children's games, you also have achievements for winning a round of Concentration in 18 moves or less, getting a combined score of 150 or greater in Tour in Challenge mode, as well as winning a round of Klondike in Challenge mode without cycling through your deck more than 3 times. For our next segment, we take a look at our first game in the Doujin category. For those of you who wonder what Doujin means, Doujin is essentially the Japanese equivalent to indie games. There have been a total of 8 Doujin games that received a set as part of a PC-88 DevJam, starting with Lock On, released in June 1988 by Hypasoft. Lock On is basically a roulette game, where you place bets for when the ball will land. If it lands on the correct title, you get closer to unscrambling an image on the left side of the screen. It's a fun little game, but I will say, the images from rounds 18 and 19 will definitely raise eyebrows, so you definitely don't want to do a full playthrough on Twitch or YouTube without doing a bit of covering up. This one has 6 achievements worth 33 points, and all you need to do is to clear all 20 rounds. The only other achievement needed for mastery is Feeling Special, which asks you to win a 100-time bet on the special Black Spawn. The next Doujin game for the PC-88 DevJam is Revolter, developed by Amusement Software Creation Group. Revolter is a vertical shoot-'em-up that is unbelievably janky. Since there is barely any documented information on mobile games, or anywhere else for that matter, I had to check the Japanese Wikipedia page for it to find out more. According to the page, when translated to English, Revolter was distributed as a Doujin software at events such as Comic Market. The game designer for this title Atsuya Nagano later founded Custom, which was a studio that developed the PCFX exclusive animation platformer Chip-chan Kick. After Custom disbanded sometime after the release of the visual novel/card game hybrid Star Platinum for PC-98 and Windows 95, he joined M2 and is known for directing the M2 Shot Triggers project, which revived classic shooting games. The set for Revolter contained 12 achievements worth 277 points. And given how the game is janky and punishing, to the point where even beating the first stage is something of a Herculean task, to anyone planning to master it, may Banan have mercy on your soul. Released in 1989 by Knob Software, Tetras is, as you can already tell by its name, a Tetris clone. This one is even more obscure than the other two, as the only search results I got when searching online are for the PC-88 version of Tetris. From what I can gather, Tetras has 3 main modes. 2-Mei, which asks you to clear all lines with a limited amount of blocks, while Extra and Omake modes are straight Tetris clones, with the Extra mode in particular throwing in additional pieces to worry about. There's also a bullet hell minigame, though rumor has it that there is an asteroid clone hidden within the game if you look hard enough. The set for Tetras has 30 achievements worth 106 points, with the beat condition requiring you to clear all 20 stages in 2-Mei mode, successfully placing 100 blocks in Extra mode, reaching level 10 in Omake mode, and clearing 1 round of the bullet hell minigame. Taking a small break from doujin games, next up is Shanghai II. Released a year after the original MSX, arcade, PC-98, and Sharp X68000 versions, Shanghai II is a variant of the puzzle game also known as Solitaire Mahjong. As we know, 144 Mahjong tiles are arranged in rows and stacked upon each other in various patterns. The player's goal is to remove pairs of matching tiles that do not have adjacent tiles from both sides until the whole board is clear. This variant features 6 patterns named after animals: tiger, scorpion, monkey, snake, panther, and dragon. The player can choose to display hints or reverse any amount of moves. The set for the PC-88 version has 8 achievements worth 40 points, with the main goal for the beat condition is to complete stage 6 on any difficulty in campaign mode. Mastery simply asks you to complete all 6 campaign mode stages on normal difficulty and score 250 points in said mode. Our next doujin game as part of the PC-88 DevJam is Blue Mint, released in 1990. Developed by Caramel Ribbon, it's essentially nothing more than a chill sliding puzzle featuring 80s anime style art. Starting with a small 3x3 puzzle, the puzzles get progressively larger, but if you know what you're doing, a sliding puzzle is still the same regardless. This set has 6 achievements worth 15 points, and all you need to do to master it is to complete all 6 puzzles. Developed by Studio 4989 in 1990, Puzzle Kana is a simple Sokoban style game where you push blocks into the end goal. In this game, blocks will slide forever until they hit a wall or another object, so it's like those ice block puzzles. You can't push balls into each other, or else they'll shatter, and some blocks can be pushed, but others can't. There are a few other kinds of blocks, like redirection arrows, but it's a very simple rule setup. The set for Puzzle Kana has 16 achievements worth 98 points, and to beat this one requires you to complete all 30 stages. Besides completing stages without losing a life, you also have achievements for gaining extra lives on both UFO shooter and roulette bonus stages. Released sometime in 1991, our next doujin title is Magnet Girl. Developed by Kazuo Hata and published by Lotus Fruits, it's a puzzle platformer where the goal is to get rid of all the magnets by combining the polar opposites with each other. For that, Magnet Girl can switch between blue and red to push the magnets into their respective colors. Magnets can also be handy for use as stairs or elevators, but you want to make sure you don't leave any magnets in unreachable places, or else you have to restart at the cost of a life. The set for Magnet Girl has 21 achievements worth 132 points, and you just need to solve all 15 stages to beat this game. Besides solving stages without losing a life, you have the Static Genius achievement, where you have to solve all stages from the beginning in a single session. Magnet World 2 is essentially a sequel to Magnet Girl that's more of the same, but a lot more difficult. Supposedly released in 1992, there are 20 stages to solve this time, so I hope you'll be able to get past the game's particularly lousy physics. The set for Magnet World 2 has 27 achievements worth 153 points, and as far as the challenges are concerned, they are the same as in the predecessor, so you should be able to figure that out already. Our final doujin game for the PC-88 DevJam is Evergreen, developed and published by Lotus Fruits. This was a pretty late release for the PC-88, considering it came out in 1993. It was the same year Atari Jaguar, FM Town Smarty, Amiga CD32, Laseractive, and a 3DO interactive multiplayer arrived in stores, and not to mention countless titles including Virtua Fighter, Ridge Racer, Star Fox, The Seventh Guest, Sonic CD, Day of a Tentacle, and, of course, Doom. You play as a girl who has the ability to change the monster back to fairies again, as well as to change the terrain into a lush, grassy one. In order to complete each stage, you need to change monsters back into fairies and restore the terrain back to its grassy form. The set for this one has 23 achievements worth 198 points, and you just need to clear all 24 stages for the beaten status. To master it, you'll definitely need to obtain an extra life and clear all stages on Panic difficulty. And wrapping up the PC-88 DevJam video, we have the only homebrew set to come out of the event to talk about, in form of Ascend, developed by Unufuto in 2022. The main premise of Ascend is to climb ladders to the top of a stage while avoiding red bombs and pink half-mouth ghosts. Probably the most impressive thing about Ascend is being able to sort of queue input for both climbing and leaving ladders, making movements mostly extremely consistent. The set has 8 achievements worth 47 points, and besides clearing stage 10, thus completing the first loop, you also have achievements for clearing the second loop and clearing stages 1 through 10 without losing a life.